is thinking about directing a first movie about his life. Now, I said, of course, because it's Colleen, and because I wanted to meet Titus. But, I'm saying, okay, how many people have come to me and said their story would make a great movie or their family story would make a movie, and you'd be like, no, and I'm sorry. Now, for those of you who don't truly know who Titus is, probably most of you do, he is a very important painter. He is self-taught. He has a master's in fine arts from Yale. His works are in the collections of MoMA, the Yale University Art Gallery, Studio Museum in Harlem, Brooklyn Art Museum, to name just a few of the prestigious institutions. And he started this wonderful collective called Next Haven, which is a national arts community set in New Haven, which supports artists and curators and high school students. It's really extraordinary. So we go to lunch. It's a frigid day. It's a Sunday. We are outside of Maria freezing our butts off, as we did during COVID. And as he starts talking, I'm like, okay, this dude is serious business. He's done his homework. He's asking all the right questions. I go home and I read the script, which is wonderful. First time he ever wrote a screenplay. It was wonderful. And thus began our friendship and our relationship, and I was kind of an advisory ear and a, unofficial support person, and he called me throughout the process just to chat and ask questions, and I loved talking to him and watching him go deeper and deeper and deeper into making this extraordinary movie. So I'm so sorry, I just got back off the plane from Europe and I'm a little, so this movie is emotionally compelling. It is beautiful, it's beautifully shot. It has this wonderful pace to it. I think you're gonna enjoy it very much. And again, this is a full circle moment because we've gone from I have a dream to please consider my movie for Oscar nominations. And in fact, today, Exhibiting Forgiveness received 6 NAACP Image Award nominations, including Best Independent Movie. So I'm so proud of you, Titus. And I think, as you will see from this movie, his whole life is a testimony to the fact that you can do and you can be whatever you want to. It's an extraordinary movie. I hope you enjoy it. And please stay afterwards. We have a question and answer with Titus. Unfortunately, Ingenue is sick. She just called and she has the flu. But we have Derek Cianfrance, the producer, as well. So it'll be great. All right, thank you. Come on, Titus.
Leave without my hot. Thank y'all for coming. It is freezing out there right now, so this means a lot. Usually when you see a film, it says, it'll say something like ridiculous, like a Titus Kaphar film. That's insane, because that's not how film works. Film doesn't work with one person. It takes an entire community of people who invest and believe in it. Every single time I see that under the film, it makes me cringe, because I know how many hundreds of people committed themselves to this vision to produce this right here. So on behalf of all of them, Exhibiting Forgiveness. Is on? Okay. It's always weird to finish this movie and then start talking. Right? Like, kind of just want to breathe for a second. We've done these screenings quite a bit. And for those of us who've been through something similar to this is not just a movie you just walk it up and leave. So I want to make sure for those folks in the audience that we give them just a second, like, to breathe through that. So we're gonna take a second. And then Derek, my producer here, we're just gonna have a conversation. We're gonna keep it open, all right? Breathe, y'all.
What are we breathing for? I'm missing something.
Okay. Can I tell you a secret? That's really for me. Okay, so this is Derek Cianfrance. And he really helped me through the writing process. It was like therapy, actually. I had to commit to doing it. I would meet with him every Friday for four months. And I would write some stuff and we would read through my pages and he would say stuff like, I don't think you're saying everything here. Like, what are you holding back? What's not here? Something doesn't feel right there. So he pressed me to push deeper. And I'm very, very grateful to him for that. So we're just gonna be here in conversation, but we wanna open it up now. Normally, you wait till the end, and then you don't have a chance to ask the question that you wanted to ask because it's starting to go. So we're gonna open it up and just like be talking, raise your hand, and we'll it's kind of small, so we could probably hear you, but if we can't, we'll get a mic to you. So, yeah, let's start there. Hey, man.
I'm doing pretty good.
How are you working on a movie?
I am. But before those four months of writing, Titus called me on the phone one day. I didn't know who you were.
That's all right.
I just got a phone call, and I Googled your paintings, and I was like, oh wow, he's the real guy here. And anyway, we talked, and you said you wanted to make movies. And I said, and you said, how do you make movies? And I said, well, why do you want to make movies? And Titus's response to me was, because his paintings were doing so well, they were being shown in galleries and museums, and they were being purchased by ultra wealthy people, and they were getting stored in vaults, and people weren't able to experience his work. And he wanted to make movies to democratize his art. And that seemed like the most valid reason I could think of to want to make movies. And I think that process of writing with you, I was just always, we thought like at the beginning, you were gonna hire a writer to tell your story. You remember that moment?
I remember that's what they wanted.
But you didn't know either.
Yeah, I didn't know what I was doing because I never
You
wrote a
never
script
did.
before. Yeah. But I had, I think it was my process was different than a lot of people's because in a way I really wasn't alone, right? Like we had this thing where we would go through it, and for me it was starting off writing, thinking about my sons. What do I want my sons to understand about my experience in the world? And that gave me a place to write from and someone to write to. And that was, for me, that was where I could allow myself to say things that I wouldn't normally say.
What are those conversations with your sons like now? Or do you have to have any
Yeah, I mean,
after they've seen this movie?
so the whole project started because, man, let me go back. I did a body of work called the Drone Project, which, anybody know that project? Nobody? That's all right. That's all right. I should say this too. the paintings of Terrell in this film, I made those paintings. Those were, y'all know that, right? Okay. No, that wasn't a pause line. I was just like making sure. The last time I said that, people were like, really? Are you sure? Yes, I did. So the Terrell project was a body of work that started because I went back to Michigan to visit my father. And very similar to what happens in the film, I showed up at my grandmother's house. And when I showed up there, my father was there. I hadn't seen him in 15 years, and he wanted to talk. My two sons were with me, and my father was like, we need to talk. And I was like, no, we don't. And I walked into the house thinking I was done with the situation, and to my surprise, he followed me in. And it's my maternal grandmother's house, so in my mind, you have no reason to be here. And my grandmother, who I always listened to, said, baby, you need to talk to him. And that was the beginning of it. And me trying to get out of the situation, I said, okay, if you want to talk to me, I had a camera on my shoulder because I came to take photographs of my grandmother for a painting I was working on. I said to him, if you want to talk to me, then fine. I get to film you because there's a lot that you have to account for. And I only said that because I thought he would say no. I thought if I said that, he would be like, hell no, that's not happening. Peace. He said, Beth, be at my house in 15 minutes. I said, damn, that did not work. And so that was the beginning of it. I went to his house, showed up, set up the camera, very much like what happened in there. And I realized that I wanted to be there and didn't want to be there at the same time. There were so many pieces of the puzzle that were being like glued back together and things I was understanding, and it was helpful in terms of understanding, but it was also painful to be there. And I went home and I Googled my father and found his mugshot, which didn't surprise me, but I found 97 other black men with the same first and last name as my father. And so I started painting them because that's what I do when I don't understand something. I take it to the studio and work it out some kind of way. So I started making these paintings. That's how this project began. That footage became a documentary that I shared one time and said, I will never show this again. I felt so open and vulnerable, and I was like, I'm not trying to do that. I don't want to do that. So when we started writing, I was actually writing from, in many ways, what had happened in the documentary. What I realized was the problem with the doc for me was it did a really good job of telling us where we were, but not how we got there. The other thing that it didn't do is it didn't give a voice to my childhood self. Because that little boy had a lot to say. There was a lot he needed to say. And that's what this form allowed me to be able to do. Again, we're open for questions right now, so shoot your hands in. One here.
My question is, in the movie, the exhibit is called Exhibiting Forgiveness. I wanted to know, do you feel that he already forgave his parents for what happened to him by naming it that way?
That's a good question, actually. I think it is ambiguous. The title is ambiguous. You can see it in multiple ways, right? It could be exhibiting in the sense that it's just something I'm putting out there. I'm just showing, I'm acting like this is forgiveness. Or it could be an exhibition, an actual act of forgiveness. That's the reason why the title is that way, is because I wanted it to be a little bit more open. And then here, and
Extraordinary film. Why Derek?
That's a very good question. So when I started talking about this film with people, what I wanted to do, Jeremy Zimmer said, oh, this is going to be an art film. You need a producer who understands artists. And if you don't know, this man has done Place Beyond the Pines, Blue Valentine. I mean, he won.
Other movies. I know this much is true.
I'm always missing.
Yeah, it's a weird title.
This much I know is which is like, I don't know, it's dark though. Yeah. So Zimmer said that I'm going to need that kind of help, and I already knew his work, I already knew what he did. I was a big fan, so it was great conversation. I didn't need to Google him,
The thing is, I think what Zimmer really liked, I know this much is true, it also dealt with a lot of father,
Yes. Yes.
generational trauma. I think one of the things we talked about too is that while you were writing this, I remember one of the first questions I asked you was, have you ever been to therapy? And you said, art's my therapy.
I did.
And that became kind of our North Star for the process of making the film, which I understood a lot from my own experience too. And I remember you didn't know what the ending was. I remember really on those Friday phone calls, really talking with you and struggling to find the ending. And then there was one day where the light bulb had gone off.
Yeah.
Titus wrote this movie in a hot tub, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Every morning.
Just put my business on.
He would write the movie in a hot tub. And then,
Wait, look, hold up. I gotta explain that now. Hold on. Okay, can I please explain? Okay, so, you know how you get in the shower?
Yeah.
And like all of a sudden all these ideas start coming to you.
Yeah.
Well, you can't write in the shower, right?
Yeah.
But the same thing happens to me in the hot tub. So I sit up in my hot tub, and yes, I wrote the entire thing in the hot tub. Don't be mad.
So, from the film, and you have said that art for you is a way of really working through stuff and working through life, and but also you said that as you wrote, what you found in the writing was that you were able to express in a different way.
Yeah.
Can you say just a little bit more about that? Like, you're such a creative man, obviously, and so just the written versus the visual.
So, how do I say this? Basically, before I started writing, and this is why we came to the end we came to, before I started writing, if you had asked me about my relationship to my father, I've said this before, I would have probably described him as the villain of my narrative. Like, it was through the writing process and the conversations that I came to realize that that's not true. My father is as much a victim in this as anybody. And so when you're writing, writers in the room. So if I just say that's a bad guy, right? I'm not gonna have an interesting character, right? I have to figure out what motivates that character. So for the first time in my adult life, I have to ask myself, what's motivating my father? Like, put your feelings to the side for a second. Why is this man doing what he's doing? All right, well, let's go back. Family from Mississippi, move up to Michigan to get the good jobs. All those factories close down. And as all those factories close down, you have all these hardworking people who want to work. And then right at that time, drugs come into our community. Enter in Lamar, right? So prior to sitting down and writing, I wasn't asking myself those kinds of questions. I was in my feelings.
And so the painting, when you're painting, that's just the moment and the feelings.
You mean in the process of making these paintings? Mm-hmm. Painting is so, a painting that I sit down to make happens in many, many, many individual sessions. A few brush strokes here, a lot of brush strokes there. It's just a very different process for me. And at this stage of my career, I've been doing it almost 20 years now. That's crazy to say. I've been doing it almost 20 years now. There's something valuable for me in the process where it's still struggle, where I have to struggle through it a little bit. So even in paintings, I now have to do certain things to struggle a little bit, to have to figure it out. Because I've done it so many times that I could just do it on repeat. And I don't want to be that kind of artist. I don't want to be the kind of artist that just makes the same thing because the same market wants from me right now. So I switch things up. I'm in the studio right now with a chainsaw and an axe carving wood because I need to switch it up because I know how to do this other thing. So I need to do something that's going to energize. Writing was just totally different because I don't know anything about it. Like, it was intimidating from the beginning. In some ways, it's still intimidating. Oh, y'all all raise your hands at the same time. Okay. Yes, yeah.
You asked a question you guys
Oh.
took the detour, which was your son. It sounds like you have two sons.
Both of us.
Titus, you
Yeah.
have two sons.
Well, we both do. Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
What? How old are your sons now, and what was the experience of them seeing this film?
You're right. I didn't answer that question. So my sons were really moved by this. When we went to go to my grandmother's house, as I said, my kids were there. They experienced that. And so pretty regularly they would say, so, like, we never hung out with your father before. Why? When you grew up, did you guys go to games together? Nah, we didn't go to games together. Did you go to parent-teacher conferences? Nah, we didn't go to parent. Did he help you with your homework? Nah. What'd you do? We worked. What? Yeah, we worked. That's all we did. We worked. I'll tell you more when you're older. So my oldest son is 18 now. He just turned 18. He's going off to college next year. And so this was perfect timing in terms of being able to finish this and say, here you go. Like now you understand all of those things that I couldn't tell you, but here it is. So then, like here and then back. Okay.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you for this. This was so moving and wonderful. And in all of it, in being so moved the entire time, I kept realizing also that it's just so beautifully shot. Like it's just so gorgeous that I can still see the basketball spinning in the air. There's a moment where like Ingenue is talking to LeBron.
Oh.
And they're in there, and you know, she grabs him by the neck, and then the camera walks around and it's through the window. It was just so, it was literally like art. So I'm just wondering how much of your fine art perspective went into the visuals you're directing and all of that.
I have a great cinematographer.
Mm.
Lachlan is a beast. I mean, he's amazing. And we created a language that made sense to me. He's been doing this a lot. He is incredibly experienced. I mean, some of the things. Did anybody see Minari? Yeah, he shot Minari. So beautiful. So beautiful. So when we first started talking, I don't know about camera lenses and I don't know about camera bodies. So that's not what we talked about. Some of the first conversations were, what's your favorite museum? Okay. What's your favorite painting in that museum? Okay. Tell me about the light in that painting. All right. Which angle is it coming in from? Is it warm or is it cool? So we started talking about paintings from the beginning so that we could be on a level playing field. I can't talk to you about lenses, but I understand color, form, and composition. I know that all day. That's what we do. And so we figured out how to make that work. But we started with a great cinematographer. Like, he's absolutely excellent. So in my head, as we're setting up shots, he puts it in front of me, I look at it, and I'll be like, yeah, I think over here a little bit, over there a little bit. But what's going through my head is, would I paint that? If the answer is no, we move the camera. If the answer is yes, then let's go, let's do it. That scene that you're talking about was like the end of the day, we didn't have a lot of time, and that shot happened because we didn't have a lot of time. And so we had no time to move the camera. We had no coverage. So we made it a oneer. It's one shot, and it had to be that way because the sun was coming down. And I was like, I want that sun. I was like, okay, well, what are we gonna do? And we turned it into a oneer. That scene wasn't even supposed to be in the film. It's not an original script.
So good.
Yeah.
She demanded you.
It kind of, yeah. Kind of basically what happened was she read the script, she loved the script, and at the end she said, this is great. My question to you is, how come Joyce never confronts LeBron directly? And I was like, oh, yeah, I guess that's true. And I said, well, what would she say to him? She said she would call him the text. I said, okay. I got off the phone and I wrote, and that scene came faster than any other scene in the film. And it is my mother's favorite scene.
Did you write it in the hot tub?
Yeah.
Yes. Was I still in the process of writing with it the last time the
Yeah, you were writing still.
yeah. So I would wake up, and the last time it happened, I hit the wall in our room, and it scared me because I was like, what if I had hit my wife? Having experienced what I experienced, I would never forgive myself. I know that I would never forgive myself. And so, so to answer the question, yes. Since the film, I haven't had we stopped and it's gone. It's gone. I haven't had the same thing, which is really interesting. None of the paintings in the film are didactic, right? It's not, none of the paintings in the film are like, this equals this for this scene right here. But I'll tell you about that painting. So, Terrell is in the scene, right? She comes in, she's excited about the painting, it's beautiful, and there's this challenge between the commerce and the content of the work, and we're seeing it happen in real time. That painting is about my 3 cousins that I grew up with. We lived together in the space, and they even worked on the truck with us sometime. And when I left, all 3 of my cousins went to prison. And Jermaine, the one right behind me, he died in prison. And I carry a lot of guilt about that, because I was the oldest in my cousins, but I was like the big brother. And so when she's coming in and she's talking about the painting, she's not seeing what the painting's about. And that's a hard thing. We enter into a person's studio, and you're entering into their head space, right? And so you have to be very cautious with what you say. And as you see Andre portrayed perfectly, he's not having it. He's really, really trying to pull her out, because it can be devastating. It can be actually devastating to the process of making, to have someone insert something at the wrong time. And what she believes is completed or even good about the painting is not the point. He's working through some shit. And so he wakes up in the middle of the night knowing what needs to happen. And really the one that is remaining is the observer, my cousin who's watching the whole situation. So we'll go. I don't know how to do this here. Okay, I'll start here and then we'll go back here and there. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Yes.
Yeah, well, first of all, your story of being who you are and writing a film is beyond encouraging for me and probably several others in this room. So that courage was really helpful to me, and that's probably a little separate from the film, but absolutely incredible.
Appreciate that.
The other part that I thought was interesting is this dynamic of power and authority in the film. And so you start the film with father broken, and he gets his life back on track by living in a basement, living hard, following orders and instruction, and he had to be, in his mind, broken again to be made whole. And he fast forward in the film, and the message to Terrell was being tough. Everybody's gonna work harder, and this idea of power and authority in order to get to where you need to go. I think that's a real life challenge for a lot of Black men, especially coming from that era. And that's just real. And so that dynamic that played out earlier in the film, and then juxtaposed to the lessons that he was attempting to give Terrell, was just a very dynamic structure if you're watching it from the beginning to the end. So not a real question, but just an observation with just a little bit here response to that.
Go ahead.
I was going to say that was something Titus really, his exploration to try to understand his father created this kind of odd structure for a film, for a narrative, where you would start, where you'd have this duet between these 2 characters for the first half of the movie until they collided and met each other. And I know there was a lot of suggestions throughout the course of the writing and the editing for Titus to get rid of the father thread and just stay on
Oh, I
to
love
us,
that
right?
your reaction was like that.
And to discover the father, like Titus said, you always defended. You were defending your father. You know, you were defending his background and to know him.
Yeah.
And without that, you wouldn't know him, and he would become just a simple villain.
Yeah.
Without a journey.
There were several people who were like, let's just get rid of this altogether. The movie's about Terrell. Why are we spending time with this old man here? And for me, it was like, how do we, if we are going to come to the end of this film and really have the same struggle that our main character is having, which is, should I forgive him, should I not forgive him? Then he has to be human. He has to be whole. We have to see him, and we have to care about him. So you get to know him, you have sympathy for him, you have compassion for him, so that when we get to that last spot, it's like, I don't know. Maybe he should. And having done these screenings several times, I am certain that some of you in this room think he forgave him, and others of you think he did not.
Right.
My auntie thinks he did not. That's my father's sister. Okay.
That was one of the revelations you had in the writing, was to redefine what forgiveness means.
Yeah.
Well, that was you didn't know that at the beginning of writing. I remember the day you told me, you read the ending to me, and it was like a revelation for me and a new way for me to see forgiveness in my life too. Forgiveness doesn't guarantee a path forward.
No.
You know?
I mean, the thing that I've been talking about a lot now is that forgiveness and reconciliation are not synonyms. And we treat them like they're synonyms. We talk about them like they're synonyms. But I can forgive you and unfriend you. I can forgive you and not come to Thanksgiving dinner, right? Me forgiving you means I'm not carrying this burden anymore. I'm letting go of this. I'm leaving it here. But you might have to go on your journey this way, and I'm going on my journey that way. I was talking to somebody else about this earlier today. That is not. I grew up in the church, y'all. So, and I'm a Kojic church. See, they know. See, this is the other thing. When you write a script, right? And I'm gonna just say it, like, there are a lot of white folks in the room, like, when we're having these conversations, and there are certain things that's just like, if you didn't grow up in Kojic church, you're just not gonna understand this. It's just not gonna make sense to you. But every time we share this film with a mixed audience, it's like, I know when y'all are in the room, because certain spots, y'all always show out. Always show out. So it was not the kind of forgiveness that I was taught. That's not what I was taught in the church. I was taught that, how many times do you forgive your brother? 7 times? See, they know. They know. And if you smack me on this cheek, I'm supposed to
Turn the other.
Right. That's what we're taught. How can I profess that as a son who has watched his mother go through the things that she has gone through? No, Mom, I don't believe in that anymore. No, I don't think you should go back into that situation. Like, you can forgive him, that's fine, but we have to find a different path, because this is not working. It's unacceptable for us to keep going back into the situation again and again, and you get harmed every single time. So no, I don't believe in that anymore. I can't believe in that. I've watched it hurt too many people I love. Okay, there was a question. Was it here? Was it? Yes, okay.
First, I absolutely love the movie. And I thank you for also recognizing that some of us may have been tied to that movie in a different way. And in my sense, part of it for me is you dealt with the crack epidemic in a way that I haven't seen anybody else do right up to now, which is I couldn't tell where we were. You said Mississippi to Michigan, but it could have been the Bronx. It could have been any neighborhood. I didn't have a sense of it, and that was brilliant. And I hope you did that on purpose.
Yeah, of course. So we were trying to shoot it in Michigan, And we couldn't shoot it in Michigan, and then we ended up shooting it in New Jersey. And as a result of it not being the place that I wanted to be, I think it became more, I'm going to use this word, universal in that sense. And I'm glad for that, because it is a story that has happened to a lot of different people in a lot of different places. Okay, here, and then here, and then here. And how many?
We probably, those three and then done.
Okay.
So it's more of a statement. Again, I want to kind of echo what a few people are saying. This is really a beautiful, stunning, well-done project. You know, we really appreciate the art and the love that you guys put into this. And this film is very, very. You guys have hit marks that like I haven't seen in a lot of films in a very long time. And that's hard to really do, and it's a testament to what you guys put into this as well. This is very deserving of a best film nomination by the Academy by far.
On your list.
So just bravo. We love you, brother, and we really appreciate the art that just came out of it.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you. Here. There's one back here.
Hi.
Hi.
I would like to just second his statement as well. Like, I would be considered, I guess, the same age as your child, or around the same age. So, my parents are a part of the generation that's raising their kids in a very different way from how their parents raised them, and it's a really interesting thing to feel like I'm on the outside looking in a lot of ways, and what forgiveness looks like to be the child of this new generation of parents has been a very strange thing to navigate. And so I also just want to say thank you for creating a story like this, because I personally haven't seen something like this before, and it touched me in a way that I was not expecting when we first got into the theater. But my question, I have two of them, which is, one, why did you choose filmmaking, especially being a first-time writer and filmmaker, as a way to tell your story? And how did you come to that conclusion to use filmmaking as a way to share your story? And then on top of that, do you think you're going to make more movies in the future?
I mean, Derek talked about it a little bit. There's a couple honorable people in the room who know me from the beginning of my career, actually. And I'm just talking to you right now. Nobody else is here. I'm in a very weird place in my career right now. By most measures in the art world, I'm very successful. But the work that I make doesn't go to the community that I make work about. And I'm really conflicted by that. I'm really, really conflicted by that. That's that tension that you see in that scene. And film is a much more democratically accessible medium. Expensive to make, right? But in terms of those who have access to it, anybody can watch a film, right? Not anybody can take my painting. Right now, my paintings are like only acquired by people with lots and lots and lots of money. Now, I told my mom about this, and she said, "Boy, shut up." So I say that to say I'm not complaining. I'm just saying I want to have access to the community that raised me. And so film felt like the right way to do that.
Are you going to make more movies?
I was trying to get over that question. I am. I've been saying no for a long time.
Yeah, good.
Yeah. But I'll probably do it differently. But I definitely love this art form. The business is a different thing, but I love this art form. Cool.
Someone in the back.
Hi, I just wanted to say a statement. You have beautifully placed this story in a way that gave a voice to people who had parents who suffered with drug abuse. And one of the things that was very compelling to me, because I think as
it's also a shoulder responsibility when you are a child of a parent who has had issues with that, is the need to overcompensate, always to be stellar, always to show up strong, always to be opposite and different. And so I wanted to understand your, when you were going through your journey with writing that cathartically, how did you feel being able to confront that? Because there's also a lot of, there's a lot of trauma associated with always having to be hyper independent, right? So I just wanted to ask you that.
Wow, last question. So heavy. I'll stay out of here. I thought I had dealt with a lot of this stuff. And frankly, when I put it down on the page, I was like, cool, it's done. We did that. And then we got on the set, and I watched my friend Andre Holland perform the thing that I had gone through. And it was an out-of-body experience. And my body didn't know how to react to it. So the scene that happened in the attic, or not the attic, but the upstairs gallery where LeBron shows up at the opening, that confrontation didn't happen at the gallery. The confrontation happened at my studio. My father drove from Michigan to my studio to have that conversation. And I went through it in real life. And I was angry in real life. And that was the emotion that I was most connected to, was anger. But then I watched my friend go through that. And I started sobbing. And I couldn't stop crying. I had to leave the set for half an hour. And I just laid down in a dark room, and I just couldn't stop myself from crying. I'm hearing my father's voice in my head, boy, get up, people out here waiting for you, you gotta work, what you doing? And I couldn't fight it. I just couldn't fight it. So I laid down and I said, okay, I'm gonna just sit here and cry. Just let these waves come over me, and let's just get this done with. And I came back, and I remember the cast crew, everybody hugged me up and said, we got you. And that wasn't the only time I felt that. So I spend so much time trying to be in control, right? Because I experienced so many adults out of control in my life that I tend to be a very control, trying to manage everything. Who laughed? Okay. Trying to manage everything. And there was something about shooting in that moment. I just lost all control. I didn't have any control. And I just had to give into it. So this film itself has really been a part of my own healing. And on that note, I hope it did some healing for you too. Thank you.